Today's video is going to be about the mistakes that people are making when they are using cuticle removers during their manicure. And these mistakes, they stem really from not understanding how these products work and not knowing the anatomy of the nail. And that anatomy is not being really taught correctly. And those incorrect terms are being used by the brands, and nobody's correcting anything because everyone's like, well, you know what I mean, but no, it is very confusing. So I'm talking about the cuticle removers, which really should be called cuticle softeners, because you're not putting them and poof, the cuticle is gone. They soften the skin. And I'm talking about the cuticle removers that contain potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. So they're not bad chemicals, they're very effective chemicals, and they have to be used with understanding and with care. To be exact, many products, when you look at the labels, many products contain potassium hydroxide, but in cosmetics. But they are very often, when they're on the bottom of the label, they are lower on the label, they are used to adjust the pH of the product. So sometimes the formula becomes too acidic, so then they add the potassium hydroxide, usually to lower the pH. But when you see a cuticle remover as a product, then usually that potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide is higher on the list. So usually it's water, sometimes glycerin, and then you have the potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. So these products, the cuticle removers, are quite alkaline, and they are designed to break down skin. So really what they do is they kind of melt the skin and they damage the keratin. So they are very effective, but they need to be used extremely carefully and with respect to time. So normally I would say, you know what, just read the instructions, but the instructions are so confusing, usually when it comes to the cuticle removers, because it usually goes like this. Apply it to cuticles, push back the cuticles and gently remove them, and then rinse your hands and apply oil to the cuticles. Okay, that totally doesn't make sense. Because how do you apply oil to the cuticles that you just removed? Or they say remove excess of cuticles, but like, what do you mean by excess? Like, how do we know where the excess begins and the good skin starts, right? So this actually is this makes more sense once you understand the anatomy a little bit better. So let's break it down. Number one, applying it on the skin. This is the most popular one. So applying it on the skin and not the cuticle. So when you apply this type of product that is very, very alkaline and very corrosive to the skin, especially when that skin is already dry or damaged, makes it even worse. So what people think is a cuticle is actually a skin fold, which is not supposed to be removed or cut. And the edge of the skin fold, which people also think it's a cuticle, it's still not a cuticle. It's just slightly different surface of the skin, because this area of the fold has just a bit more keratin, so it's a little bit harder sometimes to protect that area. So it's like a bumper on the car. So the bumper is still part of the car. So if that area is too hard or stretched or cracked or thick, that area just needs care and protection, then it's going to soften. And applying the corrosive products on the skin just damages the skin even more. It irritates it. So it looks dry the next day. So I don't know if that ever happened to you. So you do a manicure and then the next day, the skin, or 2 days later, it starts looking really dry and really bad. It's because the very corrosive product got on their skin and it irritated the skin. So just make sure that you are not applying it on the skin. By the way, if you're having problems with the skin around your nails and possibly the skin is dry and cracked, or it's stretched, or the skin fold has tears, or it's thick and overgrown, or the skin is swollen and puffy and there is no cuticle, or you have hard skin on the side of the nails, or you have hangnails, I have a very good download that I have available in my online store, and the link to that download is in the description below. The number two is applying it all over the nail. We don't need to soften the whole nail. We need it precisely on the cuticle, because again, it's very alkaline, and when it's left on for too long can damage the nail plate as well. Number three is applying it for too long. So many times people don't pay attention to time. And even when you apply it correctly, to the cuticle. It takes time for it to soften the skin and actually break it down so you can remove the lifted skin cells. If you apply it on both hands and it takes you 10 minutes to do the job, then you've had the very alkaline and corrosive liquid on your nails for way too long, because these products are not designed to be sitting on your nails for 10 minutes. And this is why I recommend applying it only on one hand. Time it according to instructions. Like some say 30 seconds, which I think it's a little bit too short, but it really depends. I would say up to 2 minutes. And then rinsing it really well. After rinsing, I leave the nails a little bit wet, because once everything dries up, you will have a difficult time removing that cuticle. So just leave it still a little bit wet so the cuticle is still soft, but the alkaline product is not on your nails anymore. And then remove the cuticle gently, then apply it on the other hand, wait the recommended amount of time, and then rinse it really well, and then remove the cuticle. Number 4, leaving the product on the cuticle for too short amount of time is not really good either, because then that forces you to use too much pressure on the nail. And especially if you're using a sharp tool, you can scratch the nails or just put too much pressure and use downward pressure on the nail, which can damage the nail. And the nail in that area is quite new. The cells are very new. This is where the nail is actually being made, in that matrix area. So you can damage and you can cause the waviness that we see often, especially on thumbs. This is sometimes from just pushing down too aggressively. Number 5 is not rinsing it well. So I've seen it way too many times when people apply the cuticle remover, they just push everything, they lift everything, and then just wipe it off. Well, that alkaline product is still alkaline, and it can then, when you are pushing it back and when you're like shoving everything over your skin, then you're putting that skin and that remover all over the skin around the nails, and that can also irritate the skin. So it needs to be rinsed off with plenty of water. I actually used to use probably an incorrect word describing this, and I used to say that the cuticle remover needs to be neutralized. You probably will see it in the previous videos, but I think it's an incorrect word, because if you're a chemist, please let me know if I'm correct this time, because when you say that you should neutralize something, usually you neutralize it with something opposite. So you would neutralize the alkaline with something acidic, and I don't think this is a good idea. So you need to really dilute it until it's not so alkaline anymore, and water is going to dilute it very safely. Number 6 is using a tool that's very sharp. So when using a softener, I recommend gentle tool like the manicure stick, or like the tool that I sell in my kits that is designed to be used with a cuticle remover. Because when you think about it, when that skin it's softened, right? So the last thing you want is to be scraping the very softened nail with a very sharp tool. You can really do a lot of damage. So use something that is not extremely sharp. Sharp tools definitely have their place when doing a dry manicure. So if you are curious what dry manicure is and what kind of tool you can use with a dry manicure, I will leave a link to one of my recent videos in the description box as well. So by the way, let me know which number you are guilty of. I actually probably was guilty of many of them. Actually, the number 7, I was just guilty a few days ago. So basically the number 7 is leaving it around the house willy-nilly. Around kids and pets. So what happened was I actually purchased, because I have to try everything, I purchased one of these new cuticle removers, softeners really, and I left them on the table. I just literally brought it home and I left it on a table. So I have a young dog. She's not a puppy anymore, but honestly, she's a 1.5 years and she's still a puppy. And literally like 2 minutes later, she had it in her mouth, and that's just not a very good thing. Thankfully, she didn't eat any of it, but that was, it was very possible. So, they are corrosive. You definitely don't want to eat them, and you do not want to get them in your eyes. That can cause blindness, apparently. Have respect for these products and put them away the minute you are done. And when you're doing a manicure, make sure that you don't have pets jumping around the tables, because cats just love these type of things. So at the end of this video, I'm going to just answer one of the questions that I get a lot. So why do we remove a cuticle, right? So we remove the cuticle in order to really apply polish properly and very neatly around the skin. Because when you have a whole bunch of dead skin cells just sitting there, the polish is just going to stick kind of to those cells. And then when it starts growing, it's going to lift, because the polish sticks very well to the nail. And if there is residue of skin cells on the nail, it's just going to lift. And also it's very difficult to do a very nice, neat job because the polish then flows all over the place. So this is why. You can see how I do my manicures in many of my videos, but I'm going to leave the best videos in the description box. And one of them is super short, it's 3 minutes, and I show you how I remove the cuticle. And yes, in that video, you can't really see the cuticle at the beginning, because someone was saying, well, why would you remove it if you can't see it? But I was doing the polish application, so I just really wanted that area really nice and clean. And by the way, if you are caring for your nails, and if you are nudging the skin fold, nudging, not pushing, on a regular basis, and you're using some sort of oils, or you're using exfoliants, or you use products with urea, that cuticle is going to be barely visible. So you really, if you're not really polishing your nails, don't think that you really have to remove it. You don't. If everything looks nice and good, you don't have to remove it for the health of the nails or anything like that. But if it looks a little dry, a little bit unkept, then you can absolutely remove it gently. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will answer them in a question area underneath the video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.